Lesson number 4, page 26. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Innal hamdalillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Respected students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another lesson of the Safar Academy Green Color Qaidah. Today, insh'Allah, we shall be starting page 26 and we shall be looking at the 29 letters of the Arabic alphabet, and also we shall be looking at each letter and the different forms it can be written. Now when we talk about different forms, what this means is, so let's take example of the letter Ba. If you look at the letter Ba, the capital one, the capital Ba, the Ba, the shape of the Ba which you so far are used to looking at. So on the extreme right hand side, if you look at the Ba, which is in brown color, light brown, and then after that you have another 3 letters after it which are also Ba. So all of these are Ba. You have the capital Ba, and then you have the other shapes of Ba which we can call the underscore. Now if you look at the top of the box, you have written down beginning, middle and end. So what this means is that if the first Ba, which is after the capital one, the first one after that, this is the shape of Ba if this letter Ba comes in the beginning of a word. So if Ba was to come in the beginning of a word, this is the shape it would come in. Then the next one after that, on its left hand side, this is also Ba, but this would be the letter Ba if the letter Ba came in the middle of a word, in the middle of a word. And then the left hand side, the one after that on left hand side, this is also the Ba, but this is a Ba, this is how the Ba would look like if the Ba came at the end of a word. So if you look at the top, again, if you look at the top, it says beginning, middle and end. Beginning, middle, end. Beginning means if this letter comes in the beginning of a word. Middle means if it comes in the middle of a word. And end means if it comes at the end of a word. So let's start with Alif. You have the capital Alif. You have no beginning, no middle, but you have an end. Now, why does an Alif have a beginning or a middle? We will talk about that at another time. Maybe later on in this lesson, or maybe at another time. Then comes the letter Ba. And Ba we have just done. Ba, Ba, Ba. Then we have the letter Ta. And then we have 3 shapes after that. And all 3 shapes are Ta. Then we have the letter Tha. And all 3 shapes after that are Tha. Now, if we look at the letter Ba, Ta and Tha, if we look at the beginning form of Ba, Ta and Tha, the shape is all the same. The shape is all the same. The only difference is the dot. As we know, Ba has a dot at the bottom, Ta will have 2 dots on the top, and Tha will have 3 dots at the top. And again, if we look at these 3 letters, Ba, Ta, Tha, and the middle form, the middle shape of these 3 letters, again the shape of all 3 letters are the same in the middle, all the same. And again at the end, all the shapes are the same except the dots are different. Let's move on now. The next letter is Jim. you have the capital G in the brown color. Then after that, you have the beginning shape of Jim, the middle shape of Jim, and the end shape of Jim. Likewise, if you look at the letter Ha, the capital Ha, then after the capital Ha, you have the three shapes. You have the Ha, how it looks when it comes in the beginning of a word. You have the Ha, how it looks when it comes in the middle of a word. And you have the Ha, how it looks when it comes at the end of a word. Likewise, you have the capital Kha, say Kha, because it is full mouth. So you have the capital Kha, then you have the three Khas after that. How does Kha look when it comes in the beginning of a word? This is how Kha looks when it comes in the middle of a word. And the last one is how Kha would look if it comes at the end of a word. So if we look at these three letters, Jim, Ha, Kha, if we look at the beginning shape of all three of these letters, they are the same. The shapes are the same. The only difference would be the dots. Jim has a dot on the bottom, Ha does not have a dot, and Kha, as you know, has a dot at the top. And again, all three letters, Jim, Ha, Kha, if you look at the middle of each letter is the same. Just the dots are different. And lastly, the end shape of all of these three letters, again, the shape is the same, but the difference will be the dots. Jim has one dot at the bottom, Ha does not have a dot, and Kha has a dot at the top. Moving on, Dal. Dal, and the next one, Dhal. So if we look at the capital Dal, and then we have the capital Dhal. Remember, Dal and Dhal, they both have the same shape, but the difference is that Dal does not have a dot and Dhal has a dot at the top. So these two shapes, these two letters, does not have a beginning, does not have a middle, but they have an ending. They have a ending. Similar to Alif, Alif does not have a beginning, does not have a middle, but has an ending. Okay. The next two letters are Ra and Za. Ra and Za. If you look at the capital Ra and capital Za, again these two letters are from those letters which does not have a beginning, which doesn't have a middle, but they have an ending. So please look at the ending shape of Ra and the ending shape of Za. The next two letters are Sheen and Sheen. Sheen and Sheen. First we look at the capital Sheen and then we look at the capital Sheen. Then we look at the beginning shape of Sheen and beginning shape of Sheen. And as we know the difference between these two letters, the difference is that Sheen doesn't have any dots, but Sheen will have three dots at the top. Then if we look at the middle of these two letters, the middle of Sheen and the middle of Sheen. If we notice one important thing about these two letters, Sheen and Sheen, is that these two letters, they have like three small lines. And it is important to remember this because the letter Tha, Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha, the letter Tha also has three dots on the top, and the letter Sheen also has three dots on the top. So then how will you able to recognize whether it is Tha or Sheen? Because both letters have three dots on top. So the way we recognize the difference between Tha and sheen is that when ta is written, it only has one line, one line. When sheen is written, it has three small lines. Three small lines. That's the way to remember. Okay, let's move on to the middle shape of seen and sheen, and then the end shape of seen and sheen. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning of this lesson is this page, this particular page, which is page 26. The objective of this page is not just to read it ba 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 da 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 tha 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 tha. No, this is not the objective. The objective of this page is to read and to recognize the different shapes of each letter. To read and to recognize the different shapes, the different formats of each letter, to recognize it. This is one of the main objectives of this lesson. Moving on now. The next two letters, Swad, Dod. As we should know by now, these two letters are full mouth. The first one, which we have done already, is Kha. Now the second one is Swad, and the next one is Dod. So right now we are looking at Swad and Dod. Okay? So we have just seen the capital. Now let's look at the beginning of Swad and the beginning of Dod. Again, these two letters, the shapes are exactly the same, but the difference will be that Swad does not have a dot and Dod has a dot on the top. So look at the beginning of these two letters. Now look at the middle of these two letters, and then look at the end of these two letters. Okay, so I hope you look very carefully. The in the beginning of these two letters and in the middle of these two letters, it is easy to recognize that they are Swad and Dod because it is the beginning part. If you look at Swad and Dod in the capital form, it is the beginning shape of it. It is a beginning shape of Swad and Dod when it comes in the beginning and in the middle. Okay, let's look on the next box, which starts with the letters Tha and Dha. Okay, again, these two letters are full mouth. So we have just looked at the capital form of Tha and the capital form of Dha. Now let's look at the beginning of Tha and Dha, the middle shape of Tha and Dha, and the end shape of Tha and Dha. As you can see, all of these shapes look very, very similar to the original and to the capital form of Tha and Dha. So hopefully these two letters we shall find it very easy to recognize. The next two letters are Ain and Ghain. Let's look at the capital Ain and the capital Ghain. These two letters, the shape is exactly the same. The difference will be that the letter Ain, does not have a dot, but the letter Ghain has one dot at the bottom, at the top. Now let's look at the beginning shape of Ain and Ghain, and then the middle shape of Ain, then Ghain, and then the end shape of Ain and Ghain. It's important that we recognize it. The next letter is the letter Fa. Look at the capital form of Fa, and then look at the letter Qaf. Okay. Now, Although the letters fa and qaf, the capital fa and capital qaf, although they do not look the same, they do not look the same, but, and also before we carry on, fa has one dot on the top and qaf has two dots at the top. So although the capital letters are not the same, but if you look at the beginning of each letter, the beginning of fa, beginning of qaf, the shape is the same. And if you look at the middle form of fa and the middle form of qaf, again the shape is the same. Although the shape is the same, but the dots will be different. Fa always has one dot on the top, and qaf also always has two dots at the top. Okay? And then if you look at the ending of fa and the ending of qaf, it is very easy to identify the ending of fa and the ending of qaf because it actually looks like the capital, its capital form. And also not forgetting that just now we did the letter ghain. Ghain was also full mouth, and the last letter of full mouth, which is qaf, which we have just read as well. So just a quick recap so far. We have done 7 letters which are full mouth. Kha, Sad, Dad, Ta, Za, Ghain, Qaf. Okay, let's move on. The next letter we are looking at is the letter Kaf. Kaf. Let's look at the beginning shape of Kaf, then the middle shape of Kaf, and then the ending shape of Kaf. If you look at the beginning and the middle form of Kaf, it's like the letter Kaf has a hat on top. It's like it has a baseball cap. And the ending form of Kaf is very similar to the capital Kaf. Okay, let's carry on. The next letter is Lam. Okay, Lam. If we look at the beginning and the middle shapes of Lam, it's like a straight line. It's like a straight line. And then the end shape of Lam is like the capital form of Lam. Next letter is Mim. Look at the capital Mim. If you look at the next 3 shapes of Mim, it's like, sorry, the middle shape of Mim. So all 3 shapes of Mim has a small circle in it, okay? One way to remember is that the 3 shapes of Mim, the beginning, the middle, and the end, they all have like a tiny circle in it. But the middle form of Mim is like a squashed up circle. It's like a squashed up small circle. So this is how one of the ways we can remember the 3 different forms of the letter Mim. Moving on to the next letter, which is Nun. So Nun is very interesting because if you look at the beginning shape of Nun, the beginning shape of Nun is exactly the same shape as the beginning of Ba, the beginning of Ta, and the beginning of Tha. And if we look at the middle form of Nun, again, the middle form of Nun is exactly the same shape as the middle of Ba, Ta, and Tha. And the ending of Nun is pretty much very similar to the capital letter Nun. Okay? Moving on to the next letter, which is Ha. Small Ha. ha, like the letter H in English, ha. Okay, so this letter is ha. Now ha is slightly different to the other shapes because ha is very different. The beginning is different, the middle is different, and the end is different. All three forms of the letter ha are all different. So this may be a little bit tricky and slightly more challenging, but I'm sure if you pay attention, if you look very closely, you will come to know, and inshallah, you will very easily recognize the three different shapes and forms of ha. The next letter is the letter waw. Waw does not have a beginning and does not have a middle, but it has an ending. And even the ending of the letter waw looks very same to the capital waw. The next letter is hamza. Hamza, the beginning of hamza, the shape, the shape of the beginning of hamza is exactly the same as the beginning of ba, ta, tha, and noon. And obviously, you will recognize Hamza because in all three shapes of Hamza, it has a small, tiny Hamza on top of it. That is how you will recognize that this is Hamza. Again, the middle form of Hamza is exactly the same, the shape. The shape is exactly the same as the middle of Ba, Ta, Tha, Noon. Exactly the same shape, except that this in Hamza, you have a tiny Hamza on top. And the ending of Hamza is different, but the way you will recognize it is because again it has a tiny Hamza on top of it. Last but not least is the last letter of the Arabic alphabet, which is the letter Ya. Ya. Ya, again, the beginning of Ya and the middle of Ya is the same as Hamza, is the same as Noon, and is the same as Ba, Ta, Tha. The difference is that Ya will always or mostly it will have two dots at the bottom. The middle is the same as well, but the difference is it has two dots at the bottom. And Ya, the end shape of Ya is very much similar to the capital letter Ya, and again it generally has two dots at the bottom. So I hope that we have read this properly and we understand this and that we recognize the different forms and shapes of each letter. And inshallah, until the next lesson, I hope you go through this, you practice the correct sounds and pronunciation of each letter, and you become familiar with the different shapes of each letter. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.